I've done like a lot of MI practice work since 2014. I since December 2014 when I first discovered, the link, the potential linkage between motivational interviewing and environment, and saying like we could potentially apply this here. I've applied motivational interviewing in so many different ways. I've done work with young people in schools. I've done a lot of casework just with independent people. Um, and I've done a lot of motivational interviewing training work, helping other environmental or ecological workers to be able to take the concepts of motivational interviewing and to use them in ways that can advance environmentalism, like in a number of different situations. Like uh, there's, we have this perspective in our society that like a green job is like the person who like works for method and makes like ocean plastic like soap bottles or something, like that's an environmental job. Or an environmental job is somebody who like does waste campaigns for like improving recycling, and it's like both of those are definitely environmental jobs. uh, but isn't there more? Like, why can't somebody who just is the chief financial officer for a bank, why can't that be an environmental job? Like, why, like, what is, if a chief financial officer of a bank wants to keep being a chief financial officer of the bank, which clearly they want to keep their job, right? Like, what does it look like to add in a little bit more of that job to like exploring that from an environmental lens? What does that look like? So I've actually worked with a lot of people to kind of like grow that perspective. So I've worked with the city of Toronto and the city of Mississauga, looking at how they look at water reduction, or how they look at waste reduction, and all the programs that they have. I've done training work on waste reduction within buildings, because there's waste everywhere. So who's to say that the only person who gets to call that part of their job is the person who does it all the time? Like, can't anybody like also do that as well? Because we all like produce waste. Another instance that I've used motivational interviewing, so I worked with a group called Citizens Climate Lobby. Now, at face value, we look at that and it's like, wait, lobby? Like, what is that? So it's not like a lobby group. Citizens Climate Lobby is a group of constituents that are very concerned about a specific topic, and those constituents go to their own elected representatives to say, as an elected representative, these are the things that are important to me. So I empowered, Citizens Climate Lobby, these constituents, to be able to go to their members of parliament and interact with them in a way that was based on motivational interviewing, so that they wouldn't bring in a confrontational kind of like teaching perspective that can really get anybody, regardless of who they are, to erect walls. And that's what I was trying to avoid and to help them to avoid. And in motivational interviewing, we know the dramatic damage that a confrontational or overly educational kind of perspective can actually do. It can bring great damage to the conversation and to the level of engagement and trust in the relationship. And if you don't have a good relationship with your MP when you're having a conversation with them, you're not going to have like any meaningful ability to help them to move forward. So if we just look at our MPs just as people, just like you and I, then we can just say, okay, well, they're just a person, but in order for them to succeed as an MP, anything that they do that's environmental, they need to be able to take ownership of it. They need to be able to feel good about it, and they need to be able to get the political capital from it. So in some respects, like just letting the good ideas be the MP's ideas and letting them get the credit for doing something good instead of saying, I'm the lobbyist, I did this and I get the credit. Just letting the MP have the credit is actually very important. And in many respects, they deserve the credit, because if they do something good, then they deserve to, get that credit and have that extra political capital. So, and so after doing some work with Citizens Climate Lobby, Citizens Climate Lobby was very successful in working with the government in passing the first carbon fee and dividend policy that's been enacted in the entire international community, and it's at the federal level. And this is a very robust policy, and a policy that at face value looks like a carbon tax, and in many respects feels like a lot of people like, hey, this is a carbon tax and tax is bad. And what's interesting is like those people that kind of feel like a carbon tax, they're kind of like it's not good. In many respects, they're kind of right. A carbon tax isn't good. There's a lot of problems with carbon taxation. But this carbon fee and dividend policy is actually not a tax. It's actually revenue neutral. It's kind of like when you put in a deposit on a beer bottle and it's 5 cents, and then if you recycle it, you can get the 5 cents back. So it's like that, because like anything that you pay extra, which is the part that feels like a tax, just gets rebated back to you. And so it seems like, well, if it's just being rebated back, like why do we do it at all? And the answer is because the same reason that we did the refund on bottles, because it actually, in a huge way, changes the behavior. It changes the behavior that we have. It changes the behavior of corporations and companies, and it does so in a way that doesn't hurt people. So, and so Citizens Climate Lobby was able to get that policy, through, and the Liberals passed it, and so we've got it on the books now. So that's sort of like another victory. So, I mean, now when I look at the work that I'm doing now, I'm just going out doing as much motivational interviewing work and training with people as I can. I actually am working on a grant with the city of Vaughan. It's a nonprofit group in Vaughan, and helping them to actually explore how to apply motivational interviewing in the transportation sector. I'm working on another grant rollout with another nonprofit who is looking at cow idling in front of schools, and like how those behaviors might be able to be changeable potentially. And so all of these ways are ways that motivational interviewing can be applied.